Well, I had a big, probably was going to be an hour and a half long lecture prepared for tonight on loops, because I've been anxious to dig into that with you guys. But I've noticed that people are either still working on the calculator project or the pet store project. So as opposed to giving you the answers to those, I figured you might benefit by me proposing, let's say, a new hypothetical problem and us just kind of working through it in class together. How's that sound? And my voice, I'm just getting over a head cold, so my voice could definitely stand to not have an hour and a half lecture. So I'm inclined to do that for you guys. So let's say, I mean, we're working on if statements still, since we haven't done the lecture on loops. So this hypothetical program that I just kind of grabbed out of my hat here, let's say that the assignment was ask the user to enter an integer value from 1 to 4. 1 to 12, sorry. Based on the number they enter, report whether that month of the year is considered spring, summer, fall, or winter. Okay, that's not too bad, right? Okay, so we start out by just thinking about the problem. Okay, we're going to have a variable probably that's going to hold our integer. There's really no need here for any kind of floats, so I don't have to get fancy with my formatting or parsing or doing anything weird with data types or worrying about that. It's just an integer, and I'm going to output a string, right? But I do have to have some if statements in there, because depending on what they enter, I have to decide what to output. So my pseudocode, let's say, will look like this. I've got my normal begin, end. And then inside there, I want to say, I guess first, get a number from the user. And then how am I going to split this up? So let's say January, February, and March. Should I say what? November, December, January, or winter? Or December, January, February? Okay. So I'm going to say if December, January, February, display winter. Else, because I know if it's not December, January, February, it has to be one of the other ones. Else, if it's March, April, or May, display spring. Else if June, July, or August, display fall. Oh, summer, I guess, comes for next. Else, and do I need to even ask if it's September, October, or November? Not really, probably. I can just say else display fall. And then that's it, right? So short and sweet, that's my pseudocode. Any questions about that? Why I did it that way? Would you have done it differently? Because there are many ways of doing all of this stuff. Anybody see a problem if I don't explicitly say if September, October, November, then display fall? What's the danger if I don't do that?
Anything else?
Yeah, if they enter 99, then I would display fall, and that would be a logic error, right? So it's good to consider that. Maybe it is safer that I do leave it there, because if I'm not going to leave it there, what would probably be appropriate? I mean, they did say in the instructions a number from 1 to 12. It didn't say any number. Maybe I need to say up here at the top of my pseudocode, if number is less than 1 or greater than 12, display error. What do you think? And then that would save me having to say this, right? Because now I know what the boundaries of that value are. I validated it. And that is a very good pattern to get into doing for your programs, knowing that you have validated explicitly what the inputs and the outputs are. There's a story about, so back in the day, there were 2 teams at Microsoft. This is probably in the late 90s. And one team wrote a bunch of code as a library, and the other team wrote code that would call the first team's library code. And they always got bug reports. Like every time they issued a new software update to their library, they would get a whole bunch of bug reports, and they would track them down. They spent all kinds of money month after month, year after year. And it 99% of the time came back to the people calling their code were doing it wrong. The documentation clearly said, call it with these kind of values, and they wouldn't adhere to that, and they would call it with all kinds of trash, causing this team to do a bunch of work diagnosing their code. So the manager said, the heck with this. This next release, we're not going to make any code changes. The only thing we're going to do is we're going to go to every one of our functions, and we're going to validate the input values are correct. And if it's not, we're going to return an error. So that's all they did that release. So they shipped that version of the code and waited a little while. Their phone didn't ring for a while, but eventually they did get a call from the second team, and they're furious. What did you do to us? Because now they're getting all of these calls because people are calling and reporting errors in their code because they're seeing these error messages pop up. And it's because now they're the ones that are having to fix their code and diagnose what the users are saying because the other team didn't allow bad data to come in. So it's a good rule of thumb to just start out by always validating your inputs and making sure that they are what they're supposed to be, so that prevents your code from having logic issues. A lot of developers will argue that, well, this is all internal code. We control all the code, the calling code and the function code, so we don't have to do that. Nope, 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 nope. Here's the difference. Even within our own team, I want to go on vacation, okay? And I know that as soon as I'm standing there in line to board my plane, my phone's going to go off, and it's going to be junior developer sitting over there, and he's calling saying, hey, I found a bug in your code. And I'm going to have to stop and get my laptop out in a panic, blah, 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 blah. And it's going to end up being because somebody else called it wrong. Nope, sorry. It's an insurance policy. I don't like getting called at 2 in the morning. I don't like getting pulled off of my flight before I go on vacation. So I don't do that. And true story, I was going on a family vacation to a family reunion in Missouri in 2016, fall of 2016. We get off the plane in Missouri, and I've got about a 2-hour drive from the airport to my parents' house, and my phone's blowing up. I have to pull over, not kidding you, in a McDonald's, and I'm sitting there on the Wi-Fi at McDonald's fixing code, and literally it ended up being that, look guys, my code's working, you're doing it wrong. The instructions say right here to do this, you're not doing it right. Logged off and went on to my thing, but it can be very frustrating. So any insurance that you can build into your code to make it bulletproof, well worth the investment, whether your manager tells you to do it or not. It's CYA. Okay, Anybody else, while I was rambling, think of anything else wrong with this program, the way it is? There's another logic issue here. And especially when you're doing pseudocode and you're playing fast and loose, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't have to be that precise here. What did I forget?
The number of the month.
Hmm?
The number of the month.
No, that's not what I was getting at, but I see what you're saying.
If you enter something less than, like if you enter a number not between 1 or 12, it'll still display error then fall, right?
Yes. Exactly. Everybody get that? I checked for the error, but if I found the error, all I did was displayed it. Then I let it ramble right on through the rest of the code. So always watch your else's, right? What I really want to say is else, oops, tab doesn't work in Notepad. That's what I really want to say. If it's between 1 and 12, then do it. Else display the error. I could have done it that way too, I guess. Right? I could have said if number is greater than equal to 1 or less than or equal to 12. Remember when I flip those, when I'm doing the opposites, I have to add or remove the equal sign. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Right? If the number's between 1 and 12, do this. Else, display an error. That works too. It looks a little bit cleaner. You guys like that? Okay. Flowchart. Okay, I have to declare my variables here, right? I just have the one variable, right? The number from the user. Okay, variable names. I learned my lesson. I'm not going to use a variable named X because then everybody in here will turn in their next assignment with a variable named X. Okay. Let's see, get a number from the user. So that's going to be one of these boxes, the input box. User number. Now, this is where the fun starts. If the number is greater than or equal to 1 or less than or equal to 12. Uh-oh, I've got an or in here. Dang it. I had to make it complicated, didn't I? So that's going to be one of these if thingies, right? The diamond. It's so nice how Flowgorithm puts the lines in there automatically for me. I like that. Okay, I can do the else part first. Well, let me do this. Enter a conditional expression below. If user number is greater than equal to 1 or user number less than or equal to 12. That look like a good expression? I know it's probably really hard to see back there, isn't it? Did anybody get tripped up and think that you could do this? That's very common. If you did that, you're not alone. Lots of people think, well, I don't want to have to retype the variable name. I already typed the variable name. I want it if it's greater than or equal to 1 or less than or equal to 12, right? That's what I'm saying in English, so I should be able to write that. It just doesn't work that way. The other thing I see people doing is saying if like 1 is less than or equal to user number is less than or equal to 12, that doesn't work either. That works in math, right? You can get away with that kind of thing with your math teacher. It just the programming languages don't understand what that means. So in here, we have to say user number is greater than or equal to 1 or user number is less than or equal to 12. And it formats it nicely in here too. That's good. All right, so I go back to my pseudocode and I can see on the true side of this, I've got all this stuff. On the false side, I've just got this display error. So on the false side, I'll do that. That's simple. I will output. You done. Okay, maybe not. Just like I said in the instructions, I said, let's make it professional and respectful of messages, right? That is an incorrect number. Read the instructions. I mean, it's flowchart, so I don't have to be all that fancy with it or anything, right? I could just say error. Okay, now on the true side, I've got all this complicated stuff. But luckily I did the pseudocode, so I know exactly the logic that I need. Of course, assuming that that's correct logic, right? Still don't know yet. I haven't run it. If December, January, February. I guess I have to do this the hard way, don't I? If user number is equal to 12 or user number is equal to 1 or user number is equal to 2. Okay, on the true side, I display winter. Okay. Else, so we know the else is always go on the false side. So over here on the false side, I'll do the same thing. March, April, or May. So that's 3, 4, or 5. So here I could do something like if user number is greater than equal to 3, or user number is less than or equal to 5, right? March, April, May. If that's true, I display spring. You guys get the pattern here, right? Another if June, July, August. Greater than or equal to 6 or 9. Output. I know I've got it kind of clicking through here quickly so as not to bore you, but there will be the video. So if you want to watch it in slow motion on YouTube later, you can. And then on this one, we don't have another if statement. We're down to the else where we can just say display fall. Okay, I'll zoom out on that so you can see the full shape. It's actually pretty attractive, isn't it? They do sometimes look kind of elegant when you can fit them all on one page. I remember a long time ago when I first got out of college and got my first job, they made me do flowcharts for some of my code. And I had to do it on that green bar paper with the little dots down the side. It was like 14 inches wide. And it was just stupid to have to deal with that stuff. You know, it folded. It was annoying. Lots of paper cuts back then in the 80s. Okay, bets on whether this works the first time. You know, I want you guys to not feel too bad. Here I've been doing this for 40 years, and once in a while, I will write a program that compiles and runs correctly the first time. Once in a while. It's not every time. It's not even a majority of the time. I don't even worry about it anymore. There was a time when I started doing software testing when I got hired by Microsoft and was working on what became Expedia at that point. And I'd gone to this little seminar where they talked about unit testing and quality and making sure that developers write good code. And I was just curious. They started talking about the number of bugs per developer that developers generate. And I got a little Post-it note and I set it there on my desk. And as I was coding, I would put a little tick mark on there every time I did something wrong and had to go correct it. And my average, I didn't think I was that bad a programmer. I mean, I was working at Microsoft after all. But I averaged about 1 bug per line of code. I mean, that's a pretty good rate to maintain, if you think about it. I have to write a bug for every single line of code. And there were different kinds of bugs, and some of them overlapped and things like that. But you know, sometimes I'd go 3 or 4 lines of code without writing a bug, you know, but it was pretty interesting. So I guess I'm saying all that to just say, don't sweat it if you feel like you have to do a lot of debugging. Debugging is a good skill by itself. And there are actually people out there that get paid just to debug other people's code. So don't worry about it. Okay, so let me run through this a couple of times. I mean, we could spend a whole class here on talking about proper test cases to use when you're testing your code. But we've got a program here where the specifications say that we want an integer from 1 to 12. When I see specifications like that, immediately interesting test cases jump out. I want to test a negative number. I want to test 0. I want to test 1. I want to test a couple of numbers between 1 and 12. I want to test 12. And I want to test 13, and then some number really high, like 999. That would be the list of, what was that, 6 or 8 test cases that I would test my code with if I was doing this for pay for somebody. And all of that I got from just saying the correct values are supposed to be between 1 and 12. Okay, so similar kind of analysis you guys need to be doing. I've seen some people turn in code that I know you didn't even get to compile. If you did get it to compile, I know you didn't run it and see a correct output once. And I've asked developers that in the past, whose code I was testing. I said, come on, be honest. Did you ever see this produce the correct value once before you turned it in? So yeah, don't be that guy. Okay, enter a value, type integer for user number. So let's see, what was my first one? -1. Spring. Now, how did that happen? How did I get -1? Any thoughts? I think my problem is right up here. I can't believe nobody caught this.
You can do negative or overall.
No, I can do negatives. I can do all kinds of stuff. I could do 7,482. I could do -1,000,000. I could do whatever I want to. Who said that? Nice job. I did it wrong. I did it backwards. If user number is greater than or equal to 1, or user number is less than 12, this is wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
What should this be? Right? Remember we talked about that, when you flip the things around? I mentioned the one about the greater than equals to equal, or, you know, adding or removing the equals, but you also have to flip the or to an and when you do the not to it. So that was, okay. Let's see if it runs better with that fix. -1. Error. Woohoo! One test case. Let's try 0. Error. So we're good so far. Okay, what was our next test case? 1. Winter. Is that what I was supposed to do? 1 is January, display winter. Yep. Okay, now this is where I don't have to do every number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 necessarily, right? After a while, you kind of assume you're repeating the same pattern over again. But in this case, the ranges are so small, maybe it is a good idea to do each one and make sure that they all spit out, because maybe I typoed one of the numbers or something. But the point I'm making is just, once you know that a couple of your correct test cases are good, no need to go through them all. So I'm going to skip up to 12. Uh, 12 is also winter. You know, in a proper test scenario, you would want to see every one of your outputs displayed once. So you'd want to do at least one winter, one summer, one spring, one fall. Yes. You are correct. Thank you. Let's see, try 13. Error. 9994562, whatever. Error. Excellent. Okay, so that looks like it's working okay. So I think my logic is not bad. So now we want to do some Python. I like Python. Where should we do it? What are we using? Thonny? I think I heard a couple of people say that they're using PyCharm. That's a very popular editor environment nowadays for Python. I really like the company that makes that, so good on you for doing that. Oh, here's another trick that I'm not sure that everybody's picked up on. And I haven't mentioned it because I kind of like making you do the pseudocode yourself first. But if you go up here and let's see, appearance, is it here? Program, tools, where is it? Where? Yeah, look at what this is. Huh. That looks a lot like pseudocode, doesn't it? Anyway, fun stuff. Logarithm's a pretty neat tool, isn't it? Okay, it's Python, so I don't have to declare my variable. So I'm just going to say user number equals int input, normal stuff. Please enter a number 1 through 12. And then we just kind of follow the logic of our flowchart. We've already got it there. If user number greater than equal to 1 and user number less than or equal to 12, colon. I have to do the true side, don't I? Or I can come down here and type else. Print I'm very sorry. So what you entered and correct value. Yeah, very respectable. There, now I'm even politically correct. Okay. So inside the true side, what is it? If print season is, actually I don't do that, is what was a line? I must hit the delete key. What is it? elif in Python?
Yeah, also.
See, this is what kills you. As a programmer, it's so tempting to copy and paste and then forget to change the numbers.
How did you copy paste into the keyboard like that? The whole line.
So that's a good one. If you look on your keyboard, you see the X, C, and V right next to each other. X is, like getting rid of it, cut, right? That puts it on the clipboard and deletes it. C for copy, copies it to the clipboard. V has a little caret, like it's shoveling, inserting it. That's how you insert. So
But
cut, copy, paste. So
when
you say,
when you selected the whole line, did you use a keyboard or did you use your mouse?
yeah, I said Shift End,
Shift N.
Control C. Then I come down, ELIF space, and Control V.
Oh, I see. Shift N. Okay.
Season is summer. LF 6, 7, 8. Okay, before I hit run, does anybody see anything wrong? Yeah. Did I? See, copy and paste kills you. You have to really beware. It's so powerful and saves so many keystrokes and creates so many bugs. Okay, everybody happy with that? Think it'll run? Syntax error. Oh, what is it in Python? Yeah, there we go. Doesn't like uppercase. You have to be precise. Sorry, I was doing SQL a few minutes ago in a previous class today, and in there, you typically, it doesn't matter in SQL whether it's uppercase or lowercase, but for style purposes, I usually make it uppercase. So, like I said, the hardest thing in programming is the context switches you have to do. 1 hour you're writing web pages in HTML, the next hour you're doing Java and a web service, the next time you're doing C++, writing to a database. It's very tricky. Okay, what's wrong with my elif?
Oh,
Anybody?
Oh, the bottom, the last one doesn't have a code on?
Like that?
Yeah.
No? Oh. There we go. Please enter a number 1 through 12. I'm going to stop it because I don't like that. It bugs me when it doesn't have a space after it. I have to type right next to the prompt. Okay, here we go. Please enter a number. -1. Error. 0. Error. 1. Winter. 2. Winter. 3. Spring. 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 Summer. 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 Fall. What am I up to? 9. I guess this is 10. Fall. 11. Fall. And 12. We should be back to winter. Okay, and I'll run it a couple more times. 13. Error. Blah, 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 blah. Error. Okay. Everybody happy with that? So that didn't take too long, right? We even had a bunch of mistakes and problems and things to talk about along the way. It wasn't too bad. We did our pseudocode, the flowchart. We did the code view in the flowchart, or to see that version of it. And we did our Python, and we thoroughly unit test cased it. So we should be good. With that, are you confident that you can do the calculator project? Are there any other questions, things that you'd like to see, techniques that we haven't talked about?
Use energy throughout, I believe. That's good, but
Yes, I did put out an assignment for the repetition. So before you got here, I mentioned to the class that I was planning on lecturing on the loops chapter that's coming up, but that was going to be a nice solid hour-and-a-half long lecture. And I did not think my voice was up to that tonight because I'm just getting over a cold. So I'll probably push the due date on that. We also have next class, and then the following week is spring break. I hope everybody's looking forward to that. So the due date will skip a week there. You'll have an extra week to do the repetition ones. But if I lecture on repetition next week, then that means the first repetition project will be due the week we get back from spring break. And then I'll make the harder repetition project. That one will be a little challenging, just to let you look ahead. The second repetition project, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at you. It's a lot more comprehensive. But you've got all the tools now. That's the exciting thing. After we go through this repetition lecture next week, you will have all of the tools you need to do. We talked earlier in the semester about their sequence, doing instructions in order. That's the order they're going to be executed. There's selection, which is the if statement stuff. And there's repetition. Once you have those three, that's the big three. You can write pretty much any program that's out there with those tools in your tool belt. So we're going to test that. So after you get back from spring break, we'll finish up that first simple repetition project, and then we'll talk about the more complicated one. But yeah, I'll push those dates out until we get back. Probably fair to actually lecture on something before I give you a project on. Okay. Anything else?